intimacy between two people, that's a sacred thing. When you do that to somebody, it really, really destroys their spirit. It's like you take something from them. And most people that I know, like my friends that are my age, a lot of them are gone down a path of addiction. Every single one of them was sexually abused. It's so deeply rooted. Everybody at home knows who the abusers are. Light gets rid of dark. That's the only thing that does. Bringing light, the eighth fire, the prophecy, like it's time to light that up, show what's going on, and it's time now.
Shayna Gardner knows the power and responsibility that comes with lighting a sacred fire. She lit one nearly 2 years ago in her home community of Eagle Lake First Nation in northwestern Ontario. It was to draw awareness to sexual abuse in her community and call out abusers.
I was also sexually abused growing up by people in my community, and they still walk around free when they've done it to not just me but a lot of other people too.
How many days was the fire lit?
I had it going for 3 months.
3 months?
Yeah.
All through the night?
Yeah.
How was that?
24/7. It was exhausting. It was so exhausting. Like, there's no way I would have been able to do it without. I had 3 of my friends with me. There was Shaylin, Storm, and Rochelle. Like, there's no way I would have been able to do it without them.
It wasn't just keeping the fire going that was exhausting, but the attacks that came from people inside her community. People who wanted to keep the truth buried.
All of us were getting attacked almost on a daily basis. Not physically, but verbally. Like, mostly on Facebook. Mostly online. Nobody would come and say anything right to us, but everybody was really bashing us on Facebook.
Gardner said these attacks are part of the reason why so few talk about sexual abuse in First Nation communities.
Victims are further victimized in our communities when they talk about their abuse. When they want justice, we're the ones that are looked at as being hateful and in the wrong.
While the fire was lit, Gardner also spoke to the media, including going on APTN's Nation to Nation. She said something at the time some felt was controversial about the root cause of sexual abuse.
It absolutely stems from residential school and colonization. Like, I understand that's where it comes from. But at what point are we just using that as an excuse to continue that behavior?
Do you still feel that way, and why?
I still stand behind that. 100%. Even with the discovery of all the children that's been coming out in the last year, it's devastating. It's heartbreaking to think that this was happening to babies. But what about the kids in our community? What about the ones that are here still? Like, what about them? What are we going to do to protect them? It's still happening. Now we're doing it to each other.
But fixing that damage is easier said than done. Sexual abuse within First Nations communities is a hidden epidemic. Resources to address the issue fall short of any meaningful or lasting change. And victims are often too afraid or too ashamed to speak out. Something that Craig Levan found out firsthand.
Where are we right now?
We're in Wajishkanigam, Rat Portage, in my home community in Kenora, Ontario.
What happened to you when you were a child here?
Well, a lot of residual effects from residential school, like sexual assault, physical abuse, mental abuse, like there's psychological abuse. Any abuse you could think of, it's happened here. And now that I'm an adult, I can come back and face these perpetrators and get some healing for myself to reconnect my family and my children.
And APTN has been with Levan along his healing journey. We first met in the fall of 2020, then again in 2021. Both times, he was volunteering as an outreach worker in the city of Kenora. And while his resolve has only strengthened over the years, the concerns and frustrations were much the same.
Seeing a lot of my friends earlier on doing things for whatever we had to do to survive. And I still see a lot of my friends on the streets to this day that otherwise had a good path and good parents and things in front of them, but still ultimately chose the street life, right? Like just because I see as misery loves company, we lose our friends and we're stuck in that mindset. Sometimes we don't get out of it.
Levan left this reserve about 3 years ago and headed out on a healing journey. He traveled back and forth from Winnipeg and Kenora, always looking to help others in need.
You could see it in my eyes, you could see it in my expression. I wasn't full-hearted into my work, so I had to address that issue, and I had to come back home and face my demons, and my demons are my abusers. They still hold a lot of power over me.
Is that helping you?
Yeah. So that's kind of what I've been holding on to this whole time, trying to talk to counselors and trying to see therapists and, just brushing on the subjects and never really dealing with the issue. And I think just by pressing charges and them having some sort of accountability, that's going to give me more healing because, even just me coming back and talking about it, I'm starting to stand up and I'm starting to, to have more strength every day.
Levan says he ran away from his community when he was 11 years old. People called him a drug addict. Instead of looking at the root causes, he ended up here in Kenora selling weed to get by.
If you're going to accuse someone of being addicted, you need to address the issue. Like, why are they addicted? Why are they running away from home? Why are they acting out in certain ways? We need to listen to the people being loud in the room and ask them, why are they seeking this attention? What's going on at home? What's going on in your community? We're all unwell, and it's just time that we pick each other up and start moving forward.
Let's keep moving. Let's go this way. Everyone has a story. Every girl, every woman, even the boys. That's what a First Nations woman once told me of her community in Northern Ontario. For her, it was her uncle. That's the man that sexually abused her when she was just a little girl. Sexual abuse is a silent epidemic, buried truth. Everyone in the community knows, but no one talks about it. It's a poison, destroying everyone it touches as it ripples through the generations. I've seen it in child welfare cases I've covered over the last 5 years. Child after child killing themselves. Amy Owen, 13 years old. Sasha Bob, 12 years old. Everyone was quick to point to mental illness as the cause, completely ignoring their broken hearts, shattered spirits, just like they did with Valerie Fisher.
the low self-esteem kicked in, and the suicidal depressions, because I wanted to die. I wanted to die. I remember swimming in the lake and watching the morning sunrises, the mist, the storms, and picking wild berries and picking flowers and just being on the land. Like, I felt so connected to the land. I felt that life force. And those were the best years of my life. That was just a place of heaven for me.
For Valerie Fisher, heaven was a simple life with her family on Crooked Pine Lake in northwestern Ontario. A life force in connection to the land that was ripped away when she was sent to the St. Margaret's residential school in Fort Frances. She says she barely made it out alive, but life didn't get better at home.
When I came home at the age of 9, like, nothing was as I remembered. You know, my father was prone to violent rages when he drank, and my mother was just very depressed. I could see it, and you know, I just didn't know how to reach her, you know, and so there was a lot of things going on at the house too. There was domestic violence, including sexual violence of my mother. I witnessed her being violently raped a number of times, and I was a small child.
Fisher says her parents often threw parties in her home over the next couple of years. Some of the men that would show up were predators. And at the age of 12, Fisher's life would change forever when she offered to walk a drunk man home.
We got to his house and, you know, put him in bed, and that's where he raped me, sexually assaulted me. And I somehow rolled off the bed and I grabbed my jeans and put my shoes on, you know, and I sort of staggered out the door and down the highway like it was early morning, and all kinds of thoughts racing through my mind. I think I was in shock.
How old was he?
30s, like early 30s.
Do you want to identify him? Only what you're comfortable with.
David DeBungy.
David DeBungy.
Yes.
She was just a child, her innocence stolen, and instead of getting help, her family blamed her.
My Uncle Ronald called me a whore. A 12-year-old, you know, and his wife gossiped, you know. Her sister lived in a different First Nation community. She gossiped about my assault. Like, what business is it of hers? And my aunt, I remember, said, "You're no longer a little girl." My mother said I wasn't innocent anymore, and she said, "Because of you, your younger sisters won't be respected in the community. It's your fault."
They knew though, right? Everyone knew what happened?
Everyone knew, yeah, the community members knew, and there was even obscenities, you know, carload of guys from the res would, as they drove by our house, there'd be obscenities hurled towards us, you know, and so I really wish that, you know, the women in the community had spoken to me and told me, you're a child, this should not have happened. This is violence, and we're not going to tolerate that, we're going to do something.
Fisher's life spun out of control. She began drinking and running away. Instead of seeing a broken girl, everyone labeled her a problem child, even sending her to psychiatric hospitals.
I just couldn't get this feeling, too, this repulsed feeling in, you know, my body, and no matter how many times I washed, I couldn't wash that off. And I thought, this is all my fault. I should have just shut up about it and just went on. And the low self-esteem kicked in, and the suicidal depressions, because I wanted to die. I wanted to die.
I tried to commit suicide 3 years ago, and I tried to drive my car off of a place where I was supposed to die when I was 15 with one of my friends. His name is James. And
Craig Levan walks by this memorial every day on his way to school at Confederation College. He's reminded of a friend lost, but also what he almost lost.
I went through a lot of neglect, and then myself, I neglected my children, right? And that was something that I needed to fix and help myself. So along my healing journey, I needed to address why I tried to kill myself. And that was the abuse that happened here on my community. The internalized, hate, aggression, I didn't know if I was gay or if I was straight because of what happened to me by these abusers. And so that's why I tried to kill myself. I just didn't want to live with that anymore. I didn't know what reality was.
What happened after that? What happened to you?
I ended up in the hospital. I tried to drink. After this didn't successfully work, I tried to drink myself to death. My kidney failed, my liver failed, and I had a bleeding ulcer. I ended up in the Kenora Hospital here. And my children called me while I was in there, and that's what woke me up. They're everything that I have to live for, and the reason why I stood up.
Just like with Craig Levan, Valerie Fisher survived when too many First Nations children do not. She too went back to school, first getting her high school diploma in her 30s, and later a bachelor's degree at the University of Minnesota, and then her master's of social work, and finally her doctor of philosophy at the University of Alberta in 2019.
Valerie Fisher.
I was 62 years old when I graduated from the University of Alberta and with a PhD. And I'm also a member of the International Honor Society, so I knew I had capabilities, at a young age.
Fisher's abuser has since passed away, but she knows there's other abusers out there.
And I think there's a lot of some of our leadership in those communities too have been through that and have been sexual predators themselves, and maybe even normalize that, and I think they even laugh about it too. When they talk about a woman, a victim, because they know what they're guilty of, and they don't want to have to deal with it.
And if abusers won't, maybe it's time more victims speak up, tell their story, unburied truths, just like Valerie Fisher, Craig Levan, and Shannon Gardner.
What does this building represent to you?
This building, when I look at it, I think about my whole life. I think about stories my grandpa told me growing up about a lot of the racism he dealt with, the way that he was treated like we weren't human, how it's been that way my whole life as well. I think the main feeling is a lot of resentment, anger, pain, redemption. and revolution.
If Justin Trudeau was here right now, the Prime Minister of Canada, standing before you, what would you say to him?
I would tell him that he knows the truth, that it's time to commit to fixing the damage that has been done.
What's happening in Treaty 3 is happening right across the country. It's a national epidemic, and it's time to start talking about it, because too many lives are at risk. That's what Carol McBride, the president of the Native Women's Association of Canada, believes.
We have to deal with this. We have to talk about it. The status quo isn't working. We still are losing our young people to the trauma that they've suffered.
What is it that makes Indigenous people bury the truth, bury this down, not talk about it? Is it shame? What is it that keeps them from speaking out about it, you think?
I really think it's a combination of many things. Probably the trauma itself, they don't want to relive it. The other thing is the shame, definitely. The fear of hurting someone else with their stories, but we definitely need to start talking.
What kind of awareness needs to be there in terms of recognizing, yes, there's intergenerational trauma, yes, there's this trauma that's from all this colonization, but it can't be an excuse to continue the abuse. Is that a fair statement?
That's a fair statement for sure, and what I would like to see is that we have the resources to be able to take back our culture and to start practicing it, and having people trained to be able to help our brothers and sisters with the trauma that they experience, and to keep our younger generation safe, that they don't have to live through this.